All right, guys, here we go. NFC Schedule reaction. What does it look like for each team? Let's check it out. Here we go. All right, guys, here we go. So the NFC schedule reaction. Gonna try to make it go a little bit faster than the last one. Kind of got off track a couple times. So we're gonna try to make it a little bit quicker. What in the world happened to the camera? There we go. All right, so here we go. We are going to open up with the Dallas Cowboys. So the number one thing about their schedule, and we're going to run through it the same way we did with the AFC. They open up week 1 in Philadelphia. That's a loss. Just saying. Then they got home against New York, at Chicago, home against Green Bay, at the Jets, at the Panthers, home against Washington, at Denver, home against Arizona. Their bye week is in week 10. Then they are at the Raiders, home against Philly, home against Kansas City, at Detroit, home against Minnesota, home against the Chargers, and they finish it off at Washington on Christmas and at the Giants to close out the season. My view on this team has not changed. What in the world are we doing? What? Like Brian Schottenheimer as head coach? Are you kidding me? There is no way, and I could be wrong, but I've got 3 bets, all to the assumption of the Cowboys falling flat on their face. Dak, I believe, is going to be even more immobile than before. The offensive line is going to take time to be able to gel, and after the bye week is when they face the toughest defensive lines. You get Vegas, Philly, Kansas City, Detroit, Minnesota, Chargers, and Washington. I'm sticking with it. The maximum number of games this team will win is 4. The Dallas Cowboys will go 4-13. The coaching's going to be bad enough. And that's really what it comes down to. I believe the coaching will be so bad. Timeouts, how everything plays out, offensive game plan is already, spotty at best. I don't think it works. Now, the Giants, listen, I want to believe in them. They do have a defensive line. Thibodeau, Burns, Abdul Carter, Lawrence. The defensive line is real. I just don't trust the offense. So I think Dable's going to end up being fired at the end of the year. Hopefully he just takes a year off and comes back and coaches again, because I don't think this is on him. Right now, Joe Shane needs to be fired more than anybody else. He failed the last 2 years as a general manager for this team. They open at Washington, at Dallas. Then they've got home meets against the Chiefs and the Chargers. At New Orleans, home against Philly. Double road games at Denver and at Philly. Home against the 49ers, at the Bears. Home against the Packers, at the Lions, at the Patriots. Their bye week isn't until week 14. It is a grueling, and I mean grueling, schedule. Then they have home against Washington, home against Minnesota, at Vegas, and they close out at home against the Cowboys. As much as I wish and hope that this team could get to 5 wins, I will give them Dallas once, and I will give them New Orleans. I really don't know what else there would be. I really don't. I really don't know what else there would be for wins. none of it makes any sense. The way that everything's going to play out does not make any sense. Um, so I really don't understand what they're going to be able to do. I just 4-13 really, unfortunately, sounds like what it's going to be. All right, Philadelphia Eagles. Let's get down to them and keep this train rolling. Actually, let's do the Commanders first. Team that I absolutely love. So here we go. We're going to find out if this team is real or not pretty quick. Actually, by Thanksgiving. So here we go. Home against the Giants, at the Packers. Home against the Raiders, at Atlanta, at the Chargers. Home against Chicago in Week 6, at Dallas, at Kansas City. Then they have 3 straight home games before the bye week. Home against Seattle, Detroit, and Miami. They go on their bye week in Week 12. Home against Denver, at Minnesota, at the Giants, and they close with Philly, Dallas, Philly. So they don't play Philly till the end of the year. Listen, the way that they played last year, I'm going to give them both games over Dallas, and I'm going to give them both games over New York. So there's 4 wins right there. I don't think there's a lot of teams that are going to be ready, to play their level of intensity yet. Here's the thing about, and I don't want to get too far off because I don't want to lose time. The thing about sophomore slumps isn't that people figure out how to cover the quarterback. That's not what the slump is. The slump is the offensive coordinator not continually pushing what the boundaries can be. Peyton Manning's sophomore year was a breakout co-MVP year. That was his sophomore year. You don't have to have a slump. The slump is because we've had offensive coordinators that have stopped trying to push the boundaries and just get comfortable. I am happy Bobby Slowick got fired for the Texans. He deserved to be. He stopped pushing the envelope. He went so simple, it looked like a Doug Peterson offense. It was absolutely ridiculous. He deserved to be fired. New offensive coordinator, they're going to push the boundaries again. C.J. Stroud, year 3 is going to shoot back up, and everybody's going to be like, it was a sophomore slump. No, the offensive coordinator failed. If Cliff Kingsbury stops pushing the envelope with Jaden Daniels, with Deebo Samuel, then it will be on Cliff Kingsbury, not Jaden Daniels. I think this team can do it. This team can easily get 10 wins, potentially 11. Now, their rival, Eagles, they got a tough road. Very tough road. They open up. They got Dallas at home, W. But week 2, they're at Kansas City. I don't like this part of it. They are at Kansas City. Then they got the Rams at home, at Tampa Bay, Denver at home. Then they get a break. They got the Giants, Vikings, Giants. Should win all 3 of those. They have their bye week in week 9, but then they have Green Bay on the road. Home against Detroit. Back-to-back tough games. Dallas, then they got home against Chicago, at the Chargers, home against the Raiders, and to close the year, they are at Washington, at Buffalo, home against Washington. That's not a fun close to a season. It's really not. They're going to have a gauntlet early on. And remember, Kellen Moore is gone. Vic Fangio may be there. Kellen Moore is gone. The last time we had an Eagles team with no offensive coordinator, do you remember what happened? They got roasted in the playoffs. Round 1 looked like a wreck of a team. Nick Sirianni sucks. Absolutely sucks as a head coach. He could easily be under 500 heading into the bye week. I know that would mean they're 3-5. But if that team starts really underperforming because the offensive play call is bad, they could be 5-3, lose to Kansas City, Los Angeles, the Rams, And the Bucks, maybe Denver can sneak in because they've got the defense now that they can really play with the Eagles offensively. It doesn't match up well. The margin for error for this team isn't that big. It's definitely not that big if they want to be number one. All right, Detroit Lions. Here we go. Let's move on. We got at Green Bay to open up the season, home against Chicago. At Baltimore, home against Cleveland. At Cincinnati. At Kansas City, home against Tampa Bay. We got home against Minnesota in Week 9 after their bye week in Week 8. At Washington. At Philadelphia, home against New York, Green Bay, and Dallas back to back to back. Then they go on the road to face the Rams, home against the Steelers, and finish it off with 2 road games at Minnesota and at Chicago. This team, because they can run the ball, I believe in them, but I don't believe in them more than 12 wins. There will be a step back from losing Johnson. I don't know how much of a step back there's going to be from losing Glenn, because I do believe in Kelvin Shepard. I believe in his intensity. I think he will be a very solid defensive coordinator. But this division's tough. That schedule, excuse me, that schedule is tough. 12-5 max. But you could be looking at the Lions fighting for that division title because it's not going to be easy. Let's look at a team that they're going to be fighting for with Green Bay Packers. They open up 2 home games. Home against the Lions, home against the Commanders. If they can split it, it'd be great. If they could get 2-0 to start the year, they're golden. They are really, really golden. No pun intended. But if they start 0-2, they kind of got bailed out. Their next 2 are at Cleveland, at Dallas. So they should, at minimum, be 2-2, but their bye week is week 5. And for a team that is injury-stricken every gosh darn year, that's not good. It's really not that good. Green Bay's bye week being week 5, that sucks for them. I mean, that's bad. Then I got home against Cincinnati, at Arizona, at Pittsburgh. Home against the Panthers and Eagles. Then they go on the road to the Giants. Home against the Vikings, at the Lions on Thanksgiving. Home against the Bears. At Denver, at Bears. Home against Baltimore, and at Minnesota to close out the year. Honestly, I'm thinking 10-7. They don't overly trust Jordan Love. I think that 3-game stretch at the end of the year of Denver, at Chicago, home against Baltimore, that will be where they lose it. I think they could lose all 3 of those games heading into Week 18 against the Vikings, which, let's be honest, Brian Flores plays really good defense against Jordan Love. He's figured out how to play him. They could be 10-7, and potentially that game could knock them out of playoff contention. It really could. Now, the Chicago Bears, also a team that I think will be sitting right there. They've got home against Minnesota to open the year. I think that's a W. I think it's a W. But then they're at Detroit. That's probably a loss. Early in the year, that's a loss. But then they're home against Dallas. At the Raiders, toss-up right now, I'll be honest. They come out of their bye week. Their bye week is also week 5. Then they come out of their bye week. At the Commanders, home against the Saints. That's a W. At Baltimore, at Cincinnati, back-to-back, that's tough. But then they're home against the Giants. At Minnesota, home against the Steelers. Back-to-back road games at Philly, at Green Bay, though that will be tough. But here's why I think the Bears can beat Green Bay. They play the Browns in Week 15, home for the Packers in Week 16. That's why I think the Bears can pull it out, because they'll probably get that W over the Browns. Then they have at San Francisco and then home against Detroit to close out the year. They can get to 10 wins. It's going to take a dogfight. I can see the 7 losses just by looking at it. 9-8 is kind of what I've bet but 10-7 is viable, and the schedule has breaks in it where they can get their traction back and not just go out into a flat tailspin. And I think that's really important. The Minnesota Vikings, listen, I love Kevin O'Connell. I love Brian Flores. I love the money they've spent. They've got a top 10, top 8 roster in the NFL. But we don't know about the quarterback. And this is a guy that, like, this isn't even Anthony Richardson, Trey Lance issue. This is, he never had to do anything at Michigan. So do you have an idea of, can he even function as an NFL quarterback? I'm guessing yes. But can he throw the ball 35 times a game? He could go 3 games and not throw 35 times a game at Michigan. I've got a lot of question marks, and I think Minnesota takes a step back. They open at Chicago. I've got that as a loss. J.J. McCarthy's first game. I will take Chicago's defense to rattle J.J. McCarthy more than Minnesota's defense will rattle Caleb Williams with Ben Johnson as head coach. But then they got home against the Falcons, home against the Bengals, home against Pittsburgh, home against Cleveland. So they do have back-to-back overseas games. They could win both of those just because they're overseas. Bye week is week 6. Then they're home against Philly, at the Chargers, at Detroit, home against Baltimore, home against Chicago, at Green Bay, at Seattle, home against Washington, at Dallas, and at New York, the Giants. Big win right there before finishing home against Detroit and home against Green Bay. It's not great. It's definitely not great. I'll give them 6 wins. I don't think they get anything more than that. And that's going to be if the defense plays like it did last year. That's going to be if the defense plays like it did last year. All right, let's switch to a team that everybody has bailed on, and I don't understand why. The schedule lines up nicely for them, especially for a team that's trying to grow in year 1 as a full starter for their quarterback, but year 1.25 with what you know about him. So the Falcons open up against Tampa Bay, and they always play Tampa Bay really tough. They are home, dome, electric, perfect situation to be able to come out and just get going. Then they've got at Minnesota. Not sure how it's going to play out. At Carolina, home against the Commanders. Bye week being week 5 does kind of concern me. They come out of that bye week, home against Buffalo on Monday Night Football. At San Francisco on Sunday Night Football the following week. Then they got home against Miami, at New England. Home against the Colts and Panthers. At the Saints, at the Jets. Home against Seattle. At Tampa Bay, at Arizona, at the home against the Rams. That 4-game stretch, Seattle, Tampa Bay, Arizona, Rams, that's probably going to be a make or break. If you can go 2-2 through there, they're probably in the playoffs. And they close at home against the Saints. I see 10 wins. There's 10 wins. They'll overseas, they can beat the Colts. I think they got better weapons. Offensively, they're better. Defensively, if James Pierce and Jelon Walker are healthy, I will take both of them in a pass rush overseas. I will take them. Miami, you guys know, I think they're done. I've got 10 wins on here. But the caveat is that 4-game stretch, week 14 through week 17, is vital to go at least 2-2. And if you can go 3-1, you're in the playoffs. That stretch is vital. Very vital. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. I see 4-game win streak in the middle, right before that. So they could be riding a 4-game win streak, heading into that 4-game stretch, and just tread water, get the final win of the season against New Orleans, and I think they can be there. All right, the Carolina Panthers, a team that I like, but honestly, it's really starting to become a question because I don't think they did enough on the defensive side of the ball to matter. Yeah, you got Bryce Young weapons. You have nobody to stop the other team. Like, this is not really good. They open up at Jacksonville, not sure what that's going to be. At Arizona, probably a loss. Home against Atlanta, at New England. Then they do get a 3-game stretch where we could see what they can do. Home against Miami and home against Dallas. Those two are very big games, and then they go face the Jets in New York. Home against Buffalo, at Green Bay. Home against the Saints, at the Falcons and Niners, back-to-back. Home against the Rams. Their bye week is then week 14. They close out with 4 games. At New Orleans. Home against Tampa. Home against Seattle. At Tampa Bay. The close of that season will be 3 straight losses, probably. I mean, they do play the Bucs tough. It seems like the Bucs struggle in their own division. It's just going off of, it's a dogfight. And anytime it's a dogfight, it's not saying they're going to lose. It's a dogfight. And let's look at the Buccaneers. So the Buccaneers schedule here, they got at Atlanta and at Houston to open up the season. Got to split those games. If they start 0-2, there's a couple of stretches here that don't look good for the Buccaneers. They're home against the Jets. That's a win. Home against Philly. Tough game. At Seattle. Home against San Francisco. Philly, Seattle, San Francisco. And then the 4th game in that trip at Detroit. So if you start 0-2, you then have the Jets, but then a 4-game stretch with potential playoff teams. Yes, I'm calling the 49ers a potential playoff team because their schedule sucks. And we'll see that in a second. So a potential playoff team. Then you have week 8 at New Orleans. A little bit of a break. Week 9 is their bye week. Perfect bye week. Week 9, midway through the season. Love it. Great for them. But then they come out of that bye week, home against New England, at Buffalo, at the Rams. Both of those are losses. Home against Arizona, home against the Saints, home against Atlanta. They close it at Carolina, at Miami, home against Carolina. So you've got a 4-game stretch, Philly, Seattle, 49ers, Detroit. Then you got another 4-game stretch, New England, Buffalo, Los Angeles, the Rams, and Arizona. You got to get out of those. You got to get out of those. Like, there's winnable games. I see 10 wins easily, potentially. But you're going to have to get out of those. Like, you can lose 8 games here. There is an easy way for them to go 9-8. Very easy. And it's what's here. It's what I see. All right, the Saints, I'm just going to tell you right up front, I've got them getting the number 1 pick next year. I don't know what they are. I don't know what they're doing. Kellen Moore got thrown into this. You guys know this if you've listened to the podcast. I don't like what happened to Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore is just kind of getting thrown in. I don't like it. So they're home against Arizona, home against the 49ers to open up the season. At Seattle, at Buffalo, home against the Giants and Patriots. At the Bears, home against the Bucs. Then they are at the Rams and Panthers before their bye week in week 11, so a pretty decent bye week. Home against Atlanta coming out of there, at Miami, at the Bucs. Home against Carolina and the Jets, and they finish at Tennessee and at Atlanta. The reality is here, I at the trade deadline, if I'm them, I'm just selling off for draft picks, selling off to teams that may want some of the veteran guys, getting 4th, 5th, 6th round picks. I mean, that's where I'm at. It's just where I'm at. I think they win 3 games, and I don't think it's really good. I just don't. I don't. All right, let's get this and close this out. All right, Arizona Cardinals. At the Saints to open the year, W. Home against the Panthers, W. At the 49ers, first test of the year. Home against Seattle and Tennessee. At Indianapolis, home against Green Bay. Week 8 bye week. Beautiful. For a team like the Cardinals, with the injuries they've had last year's, good week to have a bye week, week 8. They come out of that bye week, Monday Night Football at Dallas, at Seattle, home against San Francisco and Jacksonville, at Tampa Bay, home against the Rams, at Houston, home against Atlanta, but then they finish it off at Cincinnati and at the Rams, and those 2 games could be what take them out of the playoff run. 9-8 is probably where they're going to end up. It could be 8-9. But those final two games, if they split, they go 9-8, in my opinion. If they lose both of them, they go 8-9. Like, that's kind of where I'm leaning with the way everything looks. But I think they're a decent team. It's not going to be that. It's just that they play a really tough schedule, and their division is going to be really tough. The Seahawks are going to find this out. They open home against the 49ers. Then they have at Pittsburgh, home against the Saints. At Arizona, home against Tampa Bay. At Jacksonville, home against Houston. Bye week in week number 8. Good bye week. At the Commanders, home against Arizona. At the Rams and Tennessee, back-to-back, home against the Vikings. At Atlanta, and then they're home for the Colts, the Rams, and finish off at Carolina and at San Francisco. Now, I said earlier that the San Francisco 49ers schedule just sucks. If they don't win 10 games, I'm just going to say this, and I partially mean it, partially don't. Like, Kyle Shanahan should be fired if they can't win 10 games off this schedule. I'm just going to throw that out there. Here is the 49ers schedule. At Seattle, tough opening game. At New Orleans, W. Versus the Cardinals, versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. At the Rams, at Tampa, versus Atlanta, at Houston. At the Giants, home against the Rams, at the Cardinals, and then here's where everything goes. Home against the Panthers, at the Browns, home against the Titans, at the Colts, home against the Bears, home against Seattle to close it out. Their bye week is week 14. Week 12 to week 18, they really should run the table 6-0. They really should. Will they? I don't know. But they should go 6-0 to close out the year. Just saying. They should go 6-0 to close out the year. If they don't get 10 wins, this won't be good. It will not be good. They need to go 10-7 at minimum. Obviously, we'll see if it actually happens. But they need to go 10-7 minimum. All right, a team that I think will go 12-5 because their defense is just so dang young and athletic. The Los Angeles Rams, a team that I absolutely love, and the schedule plays in their favor for a team that likes to get hot at the end of the year. They open up with Houston. That'll be an interesting opening week matchup. On the road at Tennessee, on the road at Philadelphia. Then they have home games with the Colts and the Niners back-to-back. They're at Baltimore and then home against Jacksonville, but that is a overseas game. They then have their bye week in week 8, really solid bye week once again. And they come out of that bye week home against the Saints, at the Niners, home against Seattle and Tampa Bay, at Carolina, at Arizona, home against Detroit, at Seattle, at Atlanta, and they close home against Arizona. This team, if you give them losses against Philly, Baltimore, Detroit. There's 3. I'll give you 2 other losses because the division is going to be much better, and I think the battles are going to be fierce. Okay? So I'll give you 12-5. That young defense is going to eat. The defense is young. The offense is going to be playing controlling football, and it'll work. I mean, it will work. I don't see a way that it doesn't. So, overall, and like I've said, just to remind, these are not my official predictions. Those do not come out till after training camp. After everything's all figured out, then I go through the schedule. I actually use the website, pick each game each week. That way everything is actually accurate. There's no, plus, minus, we're missing games, we adding games, none of that. I actually use the website, pick everything, and then put it up. So I love doing the reaction, though, to the schedule because you can see how things could potentially form. The NFC is up and coming. They don't have the quarterback play of the AFC, but they've got some really good teams. Their teams are better than the teams with great quarterbacks in the AFC. I would take most every team in the NFC that's playoff eligible over the Cincinnati Bengals, who have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. They have no defense. Okay? There are certain things. The NFC is coming and building teams, which will pay off, like it did with Philadelphia. It will pay off. And I cannot wait to see how this year plays out. All right, guys, that is it for the NFC schedule reaction. We are going to do the primetime game reaction on Monday, along with some basketball preview as we get to the Eastern and Western Conference Finals, my official picks for that, and we're going to have some more fun. But Monday, we'll do the primetime reaction, and then Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll start something new. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Have an absolutely fantastic weekend. Make it the best weekend that you can. Hug somebody, love somebody, make it the best weekend you can, and I will talk to you guys on Monday. Until next time, for the Sports Talk with Hawk podcast, I am Hawk, and I'm out. Thank you so much for watching.